who listen to the podcast, maybe you watching as well.
I think I had to press the other button. Well, I didn't do it the YouTube way. I had to do it through this little custom stream thing.
Cool.
So you can double check on YouTube if it's live.
Yeah, let's. I'm getting it up here. Who listen to the podcast, maybe you watching as well.
I think I had to.
I'm hearing myself. So
well, I didn't do it the YouTube. Oh, that means it's working.
All right, we're live. Cool. We can get into this now. It only took a minute or two.
That's probably a record for us. All right, so anybody hanging out with us, if you are watching this over on YouTube, you could put questions and comments over there. Sue is going to help keep an eye on that for us.
Thank you, Sue.
If you are here in the room, you could use the Q&A or the chat or whatever. We'll keep an eye on both.
What up, Dwayne Tano? First two here. Good to see y'all.
Yeah.
We got an agenda as always. And maybe we just kind of dink around a little bit about what we've been up to, Matt, and then we can kind of get into this.
Yeah, well,
get on YouTube. Cool.
I say we just kind of get into it. We're gonna shoot for a shorter office hours. We've gotten some feedback from the people who come on these and say you can shorten them down a little.
Let's cut to it, huh?
Yeah. So we're gonna
feedback was little on our end too. We're like, you know what? I think this is just gonna benefit everyone.
Yeah. So we're gonna shoot for about an hour for these office hours instead of 2 hours, and yeah, we've got a lot we're going to get through. So let's
look at us. We look all like newscastery. We're like,
yeah,
all right. So let's in my stack of notes over here.
There's just one piece of paper.
No stacks. Okay. Stacks of notes. A lot of important information here.
Well,
all right.
Let's report the news. Go.
Let's report the news. Well, let's talk about I don't know. Do we work our way down here? So the new things with us. We've had some big aha moments. I would say TNC, traffic and conversion, helped us see a lot of these ahas that were kind of just right in front of us.
Yep.
It was the first time we got in front of a lot of people, in person for almost 2 years or whatever. I don't know, year and a half.
Yeah.
It was a little overwhelming at first. It was a smaller event than, but it was kind of what we expected.
Yeah.
About 1,500 people, but we had a booth, which was rad. And we just recorded a podcast episode on this. So we'll go deeper dive on our TNC experience. That's coming out next week.
Yeah, that'll be coming out Tuesday. A week from today.
Cool.
Yeah, so next Tuesday, we have an episode coming out all about our experience, but we're going to actually deep dive a little bit on some of that stuff here. Some of the takeaways that we learned that were relevant to our podcast, to our YouTube channel, to our business in general. And this whole idea we've been talking about for the last few months of building a bigger media brand instead of just building a podcast.
For sure.
So
it's, we had some... Yeah, and we've been talking about the media brand shift for a while, but yeah, when we went to TNC, we were just like, oh man, we felt out of place being the only podcast that had a booth with nothing for sale, which was rad, just to be like, hi. Oh, so what are you guys doing here? Hanging.
Well, there are a couple new PodHacker customers that came out of TNC, but we didn't have a booth for anything for sale, but we did talk to people. And then when we got to talking to them, some of them were like, hey, I'd like to start a podcast. And then we tell them about PodHacker. Yeah. So there are some new members of PodHacker who are probably watching this video.
Thank you.
Not live, because I can see who's watching live, but there are some people who are watching this video at the recording phase. And we met them at TNC.
It's really cool. Yeah. So we also had an agenda at TNC with this booth. We were like, okay, we're going to use this as our sprint to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which we hit that in the first day.
Yeah,
it didn't take, honestly, we weren't that far from it.
We were like 4 away when we started TNC.
But like our thing with the booth, we're like, okay, so our mindset was, let's create a space within the party, like the bigger space, and have our own little area. Let's bring a couple more chairs so we can have some friends around us. Our style is kind of to just set up shop within the whole like scheme, like the event, and then naturally people just kind of the right people cruise on over.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened. Like for 3 days straight, it was just nonstop. But saying all that, we had these documents, and we wanted to sprint to basically 1,000 plus subscribers on YouTube by doing a little contest and handing out individual flyers.
Yeah,
it was a grind.
It was a grind.
It was great I felt like we had a pitch down for a podcast. It definitely gets you to like succinctify
Yeah, I
what we
almost got
do.
into a little bit of like monotony mode though,
Yeah.
where like I was just on like my predetermined pitch to everybody that walked by, which I feel like sort of screwed up the natural flow of conversations,
It
because people would
does.
walk by and be like, "So, what do you guys got for me?" And I'd be like, "Well, we're doing this promotion right now where you're blah 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 blah. Subscribe to our podcast, blah 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 blah." And then I
Doesn't
don't
really
know.
feel like we would normally do
And then
that,
people
you
would
know?
take the little paper and be like, "Oh, cool, I'll check this out." And then they'd walk away, and we'd be like, "Oh, well, we missed
Throw
an
that in the
opportunity to actually
trash."
make a legit connection with somebody." You know?
Yeah. And so actually after the first day, we just dropped that idea.
Yeah.
We still left the flyers out there, but
We stopped talking about them.
yeah, we're like, people are like, "Ooh, I want to win money." I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that's for you. But the whole idea is we switched that to thinking of how to connect with the people around us, the right people, a lot of our previous guests, mentors and stuff, but also sponsors. And that's what we're going to get into is we actually have some cool resources on these. We'll share some links and stuff.
Yeah. So watch the chat as we talk about some links. Those links will pop up in the chat either on YouTube or here on Zoom.
Yes, they will.
And if you're watching the recording, we always put the links below the video inside the members area as well.
Sweet. So let's TNC. So that kicked off the whole, like, let's think bigger with the brand, with the sponsors, with the brands that are around us.
Yeah. Well, one thing I said on the podcast that's coming out next week is that I always feel like we're doing big stuff, right? Like I feel like a lot of the people that we're around and talking to and the circles we run in, they look at us and they're going, "Man, you guys are doing like really big stuff with your brand, with your podcast, with your YouTube. Like you guys seem like you're on like a good path." And then we go to events like this, and then I feel like, oh man, there's more gears that we can hit, right? There's much bigger things that we can go for with this. And I think that was my sort of like overarching theme of this event was there are ways to go even bigger than we even imagined. And so yeah, that's the overarching theme. And I think a lot of these like points that we're going to go through that were sort of our takeaways and some of the big ahas that we've had recently are really kind of that perspective. Like
for sure,
we could go so much bigger with this.
Yeah. So that's where you're going to see us go is like, I feel like we've just, we mapped out more of the idea of where we're going with this bad boy. And yeah, let's see. Oh, we already got some questions. Okay, cool. So let's get going a little bit with this. Yeah, let's kickstart, and then we're gonna answer some questions. DK speaks. We'll get to you in a minute here. Thank you, and keep them coming too.
Cool.
So let's kick it off.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been talking about lately, this is actually prior to TNC, but I feel like TNC amplified it a little more, is the idea of getting much bigger name guests on our show. Like we're finding it not as difficult as I think we thought it would be to go bigger, to go pro athletes, celebrities, things like that. We're actually finding it, not as hard as we thought. And so there's a point I want to make here though, is that when it comes to big names on a podcast, I think most people think, man, if I get this celebrity, if I get this athlete, if I get this really big name in whatever niche I'm in, then my podcast is just going to go big. Everybody's going to hear about this episode. The episode's going to explode. I get to retire. Spotify's going to give me $100 million. Game over. Right. But that's not the big idea about getting these big names. The big idea behind getting these big names is when you get big names on board, you get big brands to want to be a part of you, to be a part of your brand, right? So we're now very much interested in going after celebrities, athletes. We've had one NFL player on. We've got 2 NFL players lined up to come on the show.
Yeah.
We're in talks with some celebrities that are on TV and movies. I don't want to say any names just in case they fall through, but
you never know.
Don't want to jinx it.
But yeah, you're right. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
And it's like until you put yourself out there, which we've chosen to do now in our own space, it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
It's not difficult, but it's also not it's not the strategy that I think most people are talking about when it comes to getting big names, right?
Sure.
The big names aren't a mechanism to get more eyeballs. Well, they kind of are in a roundabout way, but the mechanism is to get bigger brands to want to attach because you've got these big names, and then you use the money that you get from these big brands to grow the show through things like advertising and sponsors on other shows, and getting yourself more in the media and stuff like that. You use the money from the big brands that want to attach to the celebrities to grow the show.
Yeah, so that's where our heads are now is hey, let's go big with the guests so we can then go big with the brands and create like a nice little win-win-win, because we're going to give that guest essentially a lot more reach than they ever would have because we're going to have some sponsorship dollars to pump into paid media and doing some extra promotions. Hiring the best. We've hired, or we're starting to work with a few people, but we signed contracts, hired a few. We'll get into the folks that we're working with that you can kind of start thinking about. But all that stuff is like, okay, we're going to give the guests more reach. We're going to give the sponsors more reach as well as what they want, targeted reach. And then of course we grow our show.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like a little system here that we're engineering, and it's starting to work, and we have a lot of momentum. The right pieces are popping in. So.
Yeah. So basically the big idea is
our husband.
Basically the big idea is if you could go and get like a big name celebrity, an A-lister, a big name athlete, something like that to get on board, then you can go to a brand and say, hey, look, I've got Gary Vaynerchuk on board. We don't have Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm just using him as an example, but we've got Gary Vaynerchuk on board. Do you want to sponsor this episode with Gary Vaynerchuk? We're going to really pump some money into it to grow and make sure it gets some visibility. You get the brand to say, yes, I want to sponsor this episode. They give you money. You keep a little piece of it in your pocket, but then you take a big chunk of that money and you spend that money to grow that episode. You buy YouTube ads to it. You go on other people's podcasts and you talk about that episode. You do whatever you can to get additional reach on that episode using the funding that the brand just gave you. So that's kind of the big picture sort of mechanism that we're building here.
Yeah. So, and now I'm going to go to DK Speaks. I think you're on YouTube. You asked traffic and promotional strategies. What are some tips for promoting podcasts? I mean, this is exactly how we're doing it right now. And what will give us the ability to actually pay for media, because you can do a lot of organic stuff and, getting a guest to share. And, we have a ton of training in that and PodHacker, of course. But when it comes to thinking a little bit out of the box and figuring out a nice win-win-win type of thing, you can then use arbitrage, to essentially help fund the growth of your show. Because podcasts, you can definitely go about it the organic way or the referral marketing way. It's just might take some time, unless you start generating or engineering things. You can do contests. That's what we're talking about as another promotional strategy. Is you could pair up, create a contest and this kind of event, but then have a sponsor actually fund it, and actually help you, maybe give out some of the prizes, be the title sponsor, and maybe you can do like a little co-reg list kind of thing, a little custom audience that you share with the sponsor.
Yeah. Or if you have a sponsor that's like, let's say a software tool, for instance, you get that sponsor to say, I'm going to give 3 lifetime accounts away. So instead of them actually contributing money to the big contest, you can get them to actually contribute the prize. That's something valuable to your niche. And then at the end, you pick 3 winners and then you give them the lifetime access from the sponsor, and the sponsor gets their brand spread. They get, 3 new evangelists of the products who just got lifetime access, and you get to grow your podcast because you're out there running these contests that get more views on your podcast.
Yeah.
We're also experimenting with YouTube ads. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're experimenting with a company called Podcast Addict as well to run ads through that. All things that we're testing right now that we'll talk about a little more in a sec here.
Sue, would you do me a favor and link to DK Speaks, the link to our podcast that Matt did? It was like something like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, 40 ways to grow a podcast.
Yeah. Like he basically just did a whole deep dive on exactly how to grow a podcast on our podcast.
Yeah.
So I think that'll help you out.
And that's an audio only one. That's actually one that's not on YouTube. Every once in a while we started doing just some episodes on Tuesdays that don't go out on YouTube because we're putting a lot more focus on the video quality of YouTube, right? Where we want to make the videos that we are putting on YouTube much more polished. So now we're doing 1 episode a week that's only on the audio feed, and we're doing 1 episode a week that goes on both the audio feed and YouTube. But the one that goes on YouTube, we're putting a little more time into the editing because we're editing less videos now. So
those are our shorties.
Yeah.
Well, except for that one. That was pretty long. 40 podcast.
Yeah. So check those out. Make sure if you're only watching us on YouTube, make sure you're also subscribed to the audio podcast, because we do put out exclusive stuff just there as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So, along the same lines, we're talking a lot about locking down what I don't know if this is the term we're going to keep with, but we're calling them deep integration brand deals, right? Where
I feel like we change the term all the time, but I like that.
Yeah. Deep integration brand deals sounds professional.
Very.
Right. It sounds like something you would see in a pitch deck by a VC. So
then that should be us, because why the hell not position ourselves to go big, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So deep integration brand deals. So instead of locking down short-term sponsorships where, someone like, Ahrefs or Vidyard, companies that we love, and they sponsor us, and hopefully they'll sponsor us again in the future. But those deals where we lock them down for 30, 60, 90 days, and they're kind of paying this fixed monthly rate to advertise on our podcast. Now we're trying to go for these longer deals that are 12, 18, 24 month deals where we go really, really deep with the brand. We talk about that brand on every episode. Maybe we wear their swag when we go on other podcasts. Maybe they get a mention when we're on other podcasts. If we're in
video stuff, maybe there's a podcast interview with founders. I mean, we can like get super crazy with it.
Yeah, deeply integrate with them and go and actually evangelize their product. And this idea, I mean, we've been talking about this idea for a while, but it really kind of it came into picture when we were at TNC. It came into view at TNC because we were walking around the event, looking at the booths and seeing the types of people that sponsor the event, and we realized, you know what? These are the same people that would sponsor our podcast. Yeah. The audience at Traffic and Conversion Summit is the same audience that listens to Hustle and Flowchart, because Hustle and Flowchart has had most of those speakers, and it's had all the founders of Digital Marketer on the show, right? So that's our same audience. So those brands are there getting in front of people at TNC. There was maybe 2,000, 3,000, somewhere in there, people at TNC. And those booths, those sponsors, were paying tens of thousands, if not six figures, to be in front of those people for 3 days, right? If they get a deep integration with a brand like ours, they get in front of people twice a week for however long that is. And
one-to-one.
And one episode is like the same volume of people that are in an event like that.
Yeah. And think about the focus, like you have the whole podcast environment. It's totally different than an expo floor. Obviously, expo floor, you're probably, I don't know, you're looking at the pamphlets, talking with people, but like you're kind of distracted. Yeah. But you're just trying to be seen. And yeah, that was the aha moment, because we're like, man, because we definitely did not pay that much for our booth. Like we had a nice little deal arrangement here, and we did put some money out there, but we looked at some of these. I mean, some were like looked craned in. I mean, Sue was just at another conference, and actually they didn't have an expo with Funnel Hacking Live, but like the production of these things are ridiculous. And then you start thinking of like, okay, a brand just put down this much money, or they have that in their marketing budget. Maybe there's a more effective way to leverage that money. X company. Yeah. Let's chat. And, and here's why. And then you can kind of start pitching yourself. And we actually have a really cool resource. We shared it in PodHacker News the other week, but we'll share it again here, because it's like the perfect way to pitch yourself to a brand. If you're a podcast, even if you're a new podcast too. Yeah. Well, and the big idea being, if we can lock down 12 plus month deal, ideally these are like, 6-figure deals we're talking about, which gives us quite a bit of runway to go and grow the show now, right? We can take the money that they give us, and let's say that this brand is sort of attached to every piece of content we do now. Well, we're going to go and run ads to this piece of content, and we're going to go and like blow up this content with the money that they gave us to fund the growth of this. So their brand is getting exposure all along the way up, and that content lives on forever. So 2 years from now, people will still be finding that content on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, places like that. They'll still be finding that content and still getting in front of that brand. The sponsorship deals that people are doing at something like TNC, you get that one shot. You got 3 days, close as many as you can. The event's over. Peace. Look, we're going to be trying to close people for you for the next 12 months. And the amount of people that listen to one episode is probably equivalent to the amount of people that showed up to TNC this year. There you go. So that was the aha moment for us. We're like, wow, all right, we got to step this puppy up, man. Yeah. And got to give thanks to Roland as well, because he's one of the founders of partner, at least, over at Digital Marketer. And he was the one that got us back into thinking about sponsorships. Yeah. And he's like, why aren't you doing this? And so we're kind of leveraging a little bit of what he's doing there. And I wanted to also give a shout out, because Steve Sims, he's been on our podcast. Amazing mind. He thinks out of the box, does all this crazy stuff with celebrities and experiences. He's been on our podcast, has a great book called Blue Fishing. He saw us there. Well, we actually tracked him down, because that's how we do things. Like, yo, Steve. And so he hung out with us for a bit, and he was asking us about what we're up to with the podcast and the vision with it. And we talked about what we're talking about here. He's like, all right, so if I were you guys, and this is what I do too, is what he said, is go around to all the different booths, all the different exhibitors at an expo that you're at, and thank them, genuinely thank them for them to present here, because of them, that's why the event is being held in the first place. I just saw in the news yesterday, or some podcast news, that some event got canceled because all the sponsors are, some of them backed out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, legitimately is true. Like it's because of sponsors, events are being held. Yeah, in some cases, some are like Funnel Hacking Live, where they're just balling so hard. I guess they don't need sponsors. Good for them. But point being, there is Steve said, go around to every one of these and thank them. Thank them for them just showing up and spending their time here and their investment to make this happen. And then follow up with the founder of the company or the CEO. If you can find that name or that person, send them an email, thank them again. So you're top of mind. It opens the door. It starts communication with a potential brand deal or sponsorship there.
Mm-hmm.
So basically after TNC, we've been sending a lot of messages to all the people we connected with and to some other exhibitors that were there. And TNC was quite nice because the app has all of that in there.
Yeah.
You can even export some lists. And that's the thing. Actually, that's another event hack, which I know you recorded a video, is always check out those apps that they're giving you, because there's quite a bit of things that you can, networking you can do in there you probably were missing out on.
Yeah. In fact, the episode that came out today on Hustle and Flowchart was the conference hacks episode.
So listen today. Yeah.
The two of the conference hacks are the Steve Sims thing, and make sure you get the app. So
perfect.
There's 2 out of the 3, but still go listen to the episode because there's still one more you're missing.
Yeah, that came out today. So,
yeah.
Good call. So yeah, I had to give a shout out to Steve because I thought that was such a smart thing. And that's the whole thing, is like, go to people who are already investing money. I mean, let's say you even have to be at the event. Like, what if you see an event and you're like, hey, just reach out and thank them. You don't have to lie that you were there, but at least start a conversation, be grateful. And, it could lead to something if you have if you use their product or, something like that.
Yeah. So Tano is asking, what is Roland doing in the way of sponsorship for himself? You guys just gave him props for helping you sponsorships, but did he give any specific as to his mindset towards sponsorships? Well, it's actually funny because we taught Roland how to go get sponsorships. And then after that, we stopped doing sponsorships on our own podcast. And then we were in a mastermind with Roland, and Roland said, why'd you guys stop doing sponsorships? Like our sponsor, I don't remember what they were at the time, but he was like, our sponsorship numbers are huge right now. Yeah. You guys should get back into doing sponsorships. And I think he kind of put the bug in our ear about, getting back on track with sponsorships, but also a little bit about going bigger with the sponsorships. Yeah. He was telling us some of the numbers he was getting from sponsors, and, it's not our place to share the numbers, but we kind of went, all right. That makes a lot of sense to us.
Yeah. And so if you go to podhacker.com, you could see a video from Roland that says something like, hey, these guys helped me basically come up with $60,000 worth of sponsorships. And that's using the basically the flat price, the bundled kind of rate that we do with our current sponsorship. So that's how he started. Digital marketer and them, they're pretty talented at sponsorships in general. So I don't know all the specifics he's done, but we are working with a gal now doing sponsorships that also works with Roland. So
we hired
we'll probably learn a lot more pretty soon here.
We essentially, So, I mean, that's kind of the next phase here, is talking about some of the people we've been hiring and trying to bring on board to help us. And the cool thing is that most of the people that we're hiring are all working on performance basis. So they're only,
they're a contract. Yeah.
Actually, all the people we recently brought on board are pure performance basis.
So I guess they only hired.
Yeah. They only get paid if they actually generate results for us. We're not actually paying them any sort of retainers or anything. But one of them is a broker for sponsorship. So somebody that actually helps Roland with sponsorships.
Tons of companies.
Barbell Shrugged, which is another, big name podcast in the health industry. She helps them get these big brand deals, not just regular sponsorships, but long-term brand deals. And we brought her on board on a commission basis to go and help us bring in brand deals. So she hasn't brought us one yet. This is a brand new relationship.
We just signed it like 2 days ago, yesterday. Actually.
Yeah, I think we signed the contract with her yesterday. So we don't have results to share with, we're just kind of giving you the inside of what we're playing around with right now, so that later on, what we'll be reporting on.
Well, and the point of bringing someone like her in, and any person that's going to go to town for us is, they know the model and they have some connections. They know how to kind of arrange what we currently have and then also sell the vision. And, it's more of a sales type of role anyway, which, there's a lot of coordination, there's follow-ups, there's just the pitch and all that stuff. And, we've definitely pitched ourselves a lot, but now we're ready to go up level. She's been doing this for years and years and years, and there's a lot of experts like this out there. So that's definitely why we just chose, like, all right, well, it's better to, give up a percentage and go big with this.
Yeah.
And work with the best as well. So
yeah,
that's what we're doing. We'll report back though.
And so Tano is asking if the scope is 18 to 24 month deals. What are the potential hypothetical numbers looking like? How much are these deals looking like? To be honest, we don't have that answer yet. But when we did talk to this broker, she did mention, like, I think we can get you 6-figure deals.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're working with right now. That is obviously a very big range of numbers, you know,
the scope we're looking at is more like 12 months, 18, 24 months. That'd be nice. But yeah, I don't think we're reaching that far.
Yeah. Right now, I think we're shooting for the 12 months deals to start. And then once we kind of prove ourselves a little bit, we'll shoot for longer term deals. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing there. And then on the YouTube side of stuff, so another guy that we're working with is we actually did not hire him. He's helping us out and creating like a nice, cool case study around is Tom Breeze. And he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest media buyer for YouTube. I mean, the guy is like referenced everywhere. He's been on our podcast as well. And he basically is going to help us grow our YouTube channel using our podcast content.
Yeah, well, he's got this sort of idea on how to use YouTube ads to grow a YouTube channel, because that's actually something that not many people have cracked that nut. Actually, using YouTube ads to grow a YouTube channel. We've been playing around with it. We've been trying. It's working a little bit, but it's sort of a trickle at the moment. He has some sort of mechanism to use YouTube ads to grow a YouTube channel, and he's basically testing it with us first. And if it works, he's going to roll it out and offer it as a service to other people trying to grow their YouTube channels.
And we actually will probably bring him on as a PodHacker expert as well, because that's actually what sparked the whole conversation. He was like, I want to do a case study with you guys first, and then we'll come and present it to everyone and tell us what we did.
Yeah. So he'll be one of the future expert sessions, but he'll be a future expert session once he's proven this out. And then he'll come on and explain what he did to grow our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So it might be a couple months or so. But yeah, it's interesting. So growing the channel. He was just giving us some, I don't have my notes in front of me from Tom, but I think it was discoverability ads, right?
Yes, it's discoverability ads. The in-stream ads are horrible for trying to grow a YouTube channel, because they're the ones that people after 5 seconds can click skip, and everybody does.
So discoverability ads are the ones that we're going to be focusing on. If that helps you, maybe it does. But that's how we're focusing on stuff now.
Let's see. So Tano's asking, you guys mentioned earlier in regards to sponsorships, putting bundle deals together that have access to mentions in a second podcast. Do you guys have a second podcast in the works? Well, we don't necessarily have a second podcast in the works, but our bigger picture plan is to do more of this media play, where there are other podcasters that we're going to partner up with and do like pooled media deals with, right? So Alpha Hippie is one of them. I don't think they would mind us telling you that. And then there's a couple others that we've been in talks with that are interested, where we get a handful of podcasts and all together we go to some of these sponsors and say, do you want to make a deal? You get access to all of these shows. So that's something that we are talking with other podcasters about. We haven't actually pulled the trigger. It's sort of more like conversations right now, but that is a bigger picture play when we go more of this media route. So kind of our phase one right now is prove out the growth and the brand deals with one show. Once we've proved out that we can do this sort of brand deal growth strategy that we're talking about here, we're going to go to Alpha Hippie and say, okay, let's duplicate it with you guys now. And then we're going to go to another podcast and duplicate it. And we're going to sort of ideally kind of franchise this out with some of these other podcasts that we're close with, and then do more pooled brand deals. So that's kind of the big picture of where things are going.
Media network is the idea, essentially. And collaborating with the shows that have similar audiences with the brand that wants to sponsor, and we'll probably mix and match as well is the idea. And we have a few conversations already scheduled in 2 weeks. So when I get back from my trip,
we do have a conversation that's already a pooled brand deal conversation for multiple podcasts. So
so we might have some answers for you next month.
It might actually happen quicker than I'm giving us credit for.
I'm like, come on, Matt, we got it on the calendar.
It's true. So
so
we already kind of talked about YouTube, and then the last thing is we're running a podcast addict ad. We ran a podcast addict ad 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a while, man.
And we ran it.
We weren't supposed to talk about it then. Right?
We weren't supposed to talk about it then, but now they've opened up the platform. Back then it was under NDA, but they've opened up the platform. Now anybody can advertise on it. So it's I guess the NDA is now null and void, I guess.
I'm assuming, since they have a public page about it.
They have a public page, so I think we're safe. But we did buy a podcast addict ad a couple years ago, and it was the best ad we ever purchased in terms of huge growth for
they
our
still
show.
get downloads. Like they
and people are still
like 2 years
listening on
later.
Podcast Addict right now to this day, a couple of years later. But when Podcast Addict opened up their ad platform for everybody, they actually now feature like niches. So now you can be in just the business category, just the comedy category, or whatever else, right? So this time around, we're testing in just the business category. So we're focusing on just the niche that we think will gravitate to our show the most. But that doesn't start till October 1st. So next office hours, we should have some results to share on how that one goes. It's going to be a smaller audience, but Podcast Addict worked really, really well in the past. So excited to see how it plays out.
What's that called, Matt? Like, how do we get to the ads? Like, oh, here we go. It's just promote your podcast.
That's it. Yeah, if you go to Podcast Addict, there's a button at the top that says like promote or something.
Yeah, ads. So podcastaddict.com/ads.
There you go.
There you go. That'll get you there, and maybe you can get in before the 1st if you want to.
It is one of those types of things where the more people who want the ads, the higher the price goes up, right? They do have like a sort of algorithmic supply and demand thing in there.
So don't tell everyone, huh? And we'll try not to tell too many people.
Yeah, as that one dude would say, what's his name? Bartlett.
I don't know his first name.
Is it Steven?
Steven. It's right there in the URL.
Yeah. As he would say, like, I hope nobody's listening.
Yeah.
And if you are, please keep this to yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And then it's like tens of thousands of listens later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's and let's wrap it up. Actually, back on YouTube really fast. Is we're up to, I don't know where we're at now for YouTube subscriber growth,
1,050 or something
like that. It's been interesting after we hit the 1,000 mark, and thank you if you've helped us out. I'm sure Dwayne, Ton, Owen, and all y'all listening, you probably subscribed, right? Yeah. So thank you. And after we hit the 1,000, it seems like things have picked up. Like the natural subscriber growth, organic growth has just been a little faster. Whereas it felt like before we were just like, it was just struggle fest to try to get people over there to.
It was interesting. Yeah, because like before 1,000, it was hard to get subscribers. After 1,000, it seems like it accelerated. And I personally think there's a psychological thing there, right? I think that when somebody goes to a YouTube channel and they watch a video, even if they like the video, they'll see like, oh, it's only got 400 subscribers. Can't trust them. A lot of people don't seem to like this one, so I'll just go to the next YouTube channel. But once it's past 1,000, I think there's a little bit more social proof there of like, oh, a lot of other people like this channel too. I'll subscribe as well. So I think like the bigger the number gets, the more subscribers you get. I think there's like a sort of snowball. What do you call it? Like a
hockey stick?
Not a hockey.
What do you, momentum?
I don't know. I can't think right now. Just a lot of growth.
Yes. It's acceleration.
Exponential growth. You get like this. The more subscribers you get, the more people who want to subscribe to your show.
Snowball effect.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks for everybody helping me out there. But it has been really, really interesting that after we passed 1,000 subscribers, it seems like it's been easier to get subscribers since then.
Yeah, it has. So yeah, that's interesting. It might be worth going and sprinting on YouTube. If you're thinking that's your thing, I would figure out a way to generate some subscribers quickly. And I think what we're gonna do on our podcast, because at TNC, part of this contest was to get people to subscribe to our show or follow our show on Apple Podcasts. And we were watching the ranks in Chartable, and I think Podkite, is that the other one? Podkite.com. I believe that's the other one that we're using to track our rankings. Yeah, it is. PodKite.com. So these help you track your rankings in any of these different charts on Apple, and I think some other places like Stitcher and stuff. But we're just noticing that with not a lot of people really subscribing, and we're watching them do it in real time, with us passing out things at the conference, we were moving the ranks up and up and up. And that just proves again, it's like you don't need a lot of subscribers or followers to really bump up the ranks in iTunes, at least, or Apple Podcasts. So, something we're talking about is like, let's figure out some nice contests or ways to always generate some consistent subscribers over there. And it's not like we need to go super big with those things, but consistency. And then that way we can climb the ranks, since our new goal is to become the #1 business podcast. Dang it.
That's true.
We're going to do it.
True goal of ours. So let's see. I'm going to share my screen right here because we're going to start talking about some newsy stuff.
Newsy. Let's do it.
All righty. Cool. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'm assuming you all can.
Beautiful screen.
Yes. All right, so let's start by looking at the Nielsen Insights for podcast advertisers. This is a PDF that they put out with just a ton of data about where podcasting is right now. This is something that they put out for advertisers, so advertisers know whether it's a good idea to advertise on podcasts or not.
Hint, I hear it's like one of the only advertising channels that's growing is podcasts. So it's a good space to be in.
Yeah, I would say
as an advertiser and a podcaster.
Media. I mean, media, YouTube as well, Spotify as well. Sure. Like a lot of these things are growing. Well, I guess Spotify is kind of podcast, but yeah. So let's take a look at this. So lighter podcast listeners drive growth. So it seems like the majority of people who are listening to podcasts right now are light listeners. Any commentary on that?
No.
Okay.
You're good. Deciphered that graph pretty well.
Podcast growth resumes in 2021. So podcast.
I mean, we did see that, you know, like and over the summer too, there was a little bit of a dip. I mean, I think that's pretty common from what we've understood as well. And but last year, definitely, with the whole stay at home thing, 2020, it took a little dip for a lot of people.
Well, if you look, it's interesting because, back in 2018 through 2020, most people were listening to podcasts while in transit, right? And then starting kind of mid 2020, more and more people started listening to podcasts at home. I think people stopped commuting and then started realizing I kind of miss listening to podcasts. Oh yeah, and then started listening to podcasts at home.
Dude, I think I did that too.
I did that too. I listen to a lot of podcasts again. Like I pretty much am always listening to podcasts again now.
Dude, I see people just like, I mean, like these pictures, I laugh at them a little bit. Like the very first, you're like, okay, speed walking down the bridge, but it's like. But this is real, man. You look at everyone walking around. It doesn't matter what your age is. Everyone has these little things in their ears. Like, what are they listening to? Probably podcasts. I mean, like, you don't walk around usually without some of these. I mean, or you get looked at weird. I mean, you're like, where are your headphones at?
They could be on the phone with somebody too.
They could be. Okay, I'll give them some credit. But these pictures,
not this guy. Look, he's definitely listening to a podcast.
Dude, he's going like full over the ear. I like his style. Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
He's into it. All right. So podcast growth is happening across all ages. So the least growth is adults 55 and up. This one, adults 25 to 39, which that tracks pretty well for me because Joe and I are in that age range. So we listen to a lot of podcasts
for sure.
But also this age demographic of 40 to 54 is growing as well.
Dude, yeah. When my mom told me that she loves, like, her favorite podcast is Armchair Expert, I was like, what? You know about that? Yeah, I'm like, I didn't even know my mom was listening. I mean, I knew she listened to our show.
Yeah, but that's like my sister. Like my sister, when she told me one day she was listening to Lewis Howes, I'm like, how do you know Lewis Howes? He's like a buddy of mine.
You're not supposed to know him. That's my people.
All right. So Hispanic podcast growth, Black podcast growth, Asian podcast growth.
Everything's growing.
Yep, everything's growing. I think all of it sort of tracks among the same kind of age groups.
Yeah, thereabouts. This is a cool doc. I mean, if you want to really dive in on, and Nielsen's always the source you want to go to. I think they release these quarterly.
Yeah. So podcast advertising drives high brand awareness and purchase intent. This is what we've been talking about the whole thing, right? Is like, this is where money is going from big brands.
It's here right now. I mean, this is where you want to position yourself. And if you feel like you have a small show and like, okay, you might not go for the 6-figure or the millions or whatever, but still you can position yourself in a way to demand a lot more money up front for your work when you're selling your vision and when you have a vision too, because for the longest time, like, we didn't want to be the number one business podcast, or like, we're just like, we're a podcast, but like, then you're just like in the mix of things.
Yeah.
And you're probably working just as hard, if not harder, but it's like, might as well freaking reach for it. Sell yourself to people who have the money and who want the awareness. Like, this is legit. It's as like companies want this. I mean, that's why they're at conferences spending tens of thousands of bucks. They could save some cash or spend same amount with you way more effectively.
Yeah. Let's see. Top performing brands in podcast advertising by category. So technology brands, financial service brands, consumer product goods brands.
Yeah.
So consumer product goods seems to be where a lot of stuff is right now.
Yeah.
Technology is what we're actually going after, I think. But
I mean, it's up there.
Actually, no, I mean, one of the ones we're talking to is a consumer product brand.
True that. And I think we have some there was a financial guy at TNC.
We did talk to a financial, but he was one that we reached out afterwards, and then it's just been crickets. So
yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Yeah, that's all cool. Keep that in mind too, actually, for a later resource we have around sponsorships. I thought was really cool. It just kind of basically talks more and more about the power of awareness in podcasts and why purchasing podcast ads over like a trolley ad, let's say, or an ad on a train side.
Yeah.
True story. Company we're talking with, it's a little case study, but it's like when you podcast, when you do a sponsorship on a podcast, there's all these other elements that are, this article will go into that gets you starting to think about like, oh wow, I have something special that I can sell to a brand.
Watch out, JLD, Timmy Boy Ferris, Mr. Vay. Here comes the Hustle Brothers.
Woo!
We like to go by the Flow Bros, but
I'll take hope.
We'll accept Hustle Brothers.
Hustle Bros. Yeah.
All right.
Time flies when you're building an industry.
That's true. That's what we're doing.
It was pretty cool because at TNC we heard a lot of talks about media and the power of media and leveraging different platforms and how to position yourself in media. And a lot of it was YouTube and podcasts were mentioned.
Yeah, it was very interesting. There was sort of a theme happening at the event where media was coming up a lot. Podcasts, YouTube channels, that kind of stuff was popping up a lot.
We're like, is this place bugged? Oh, wait, it's our damn microphones. Forgot.
We are also in a mastermind with one of the guys who puts on the event.
Oh, yeah.
So, just throwing that out there.
No, it was cool to see. So we're like, cool, validations, all that stuff. Not like we need more of them. Like, go time. We're building this industry together, all of us, pod hackers.
So top podcast genres by age group. Interesting because pretty much across the board, it's comedy. Except if you're over 55, then it's news.
I'm done laughing.
18 plus is news. Interesting. Younger.
Maybe different kind of news, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, look at all the news is up there, and most of it, except for the
true crime for women 25 to 54. That tracks mostly when you. I remember when we were at TNC, a lot of the women that would come up to our booth, we would talk to them about podcasting, and at least 4 of the people I talked to said, "Oh, I love true crime podcasts."
There you go.
So
that's the reason why they're popping.
Women are interested in murder. I don't know. It is what it is. The facts don't lie.
Your wife likes all that true crime stuff, huh?
She does. We listened to Serial together, and then after we listened to Serial together, she started watching like all of the Netflix documentaries
or whatever. Yeah. Watch out for her.
But business is 7th in most categories except for men 25 to 54, which is the category we fall in.
Interesting. Yeah, it's true. That's pretty much our podcast demographic right there.
Yeah, it's the only one that I don't listen to is news. I do listen to sports podcasts every once in a while, Padres stuff mostly. I do listen to other business podcasts, and I do listen to quite a bit of comedy. So
yeah,
interesting.
Well, and this is the thing too. This was a reminder from, or kind of a suggestion from our buddy Dan Ryan last week. He always likes to shout outs, even though I don't think he's watching this.
I doubt it.
But maybe. Hey, Dan. We're telling him the vision with all we're doing with the brands and how we're positioning our company and whatnot with the people we're bringing on. And he was like, just go for number one in business, because we were starting to think a little broad, because I think we were thinking about these categories. We're like, okay, well, we can hit on a lot of these things. And, maybe that makes us a little bit more popular.
I like to think we're funny sometimes, but I don't think that we can be a number one comedy podcast.
No, come on now. But you did study a little stand-up, so maybe we got a chance, Matt.
If you call watching a lot of stand-up comedy, studying stand-up
you read books?
I did. I actually do have more than 3 books on comedy.
But point being, Dan was
didn't work.
Be the number one in business, though. Like, niche that puppy down, but still bring on the different walks of life, because like we're in talks with some comedians, these NFL athletes. These are all people that we can pull from the sports, from society, from comedy, but still talk about the business side of stuff and how we can improve entrepreneurs' lives. At the end of the day, that's really the DNA of what we're after.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we improve your life? And we might just happen to bring in Brian Dawkins, who's a Hall of Fame NFLer, Hall of Famer from the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know how they HOFer.
Yeah.
And, we're going to talk about how he sees success and how that can apply to entrepreneurs. So that's what we figured out. We're like, so looking at all this, let's not play in all of these, but like, hey, it's cool. Let's be number one here. Actually, that happens to be all business. Look at that.
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't need to win at the top of the category, but it's like, that's still a crap ton of people.
Yeah. Women 25 to 54, business isn't even on the top 10 radar for them.
Smart. Good for you. All right. Moving on.
Cool. Tano says the stuff that the Young Turks on the left and then some of the guys on Parler are doing on the right with political news is very interesting for podcasting. Yeah, I mean, one of the most popular podcasts right now is that one. That one conservative dude who's been on Rogan a few times.
What's his face?
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's the loud guy, right?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. He's. I'm sure somebody will. I'm sure Tana knows who I'm talking about.
Come on, Tana. Come through for us. Come through for us. Rogan conservative friend. Jesus, I'm gonna find it out. Yeah, it's not Crystal and Sagar. Even though I heard that they.
Yeah, but they're split. Crystal and Sagar, one's conservative, one's liberal.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah,
but they've like moved on to do other stuff. I think in the podcast space in media as well.
Yeah,
but I'll find it. Let's continue on.
All right, so podcast genre ranked on median age of audience. So let's see, where does business fall? So
business falls 13th,
39. I guess the average age of business listeners is 39, which is
makes sense.
I'm 38. So yeah. All right. So podcast genres ranked median household income of audience. Let's see. Where does the business fall? Business 95,000. It's actually the people who listen to the business podcast is actually the highest income.
No, almost. Yeah, it is the highest. It's sports.
It's ranked by so sports listeners make 94,000 a year on average. Business listeners make 95,000 a year on average. Nice. I
like it.
That's cool.
I mean, that's what we always heard is that podcast listeners in general earn more cash, earn more income. So
I think curious people who are obsessed with learning earn more money.
That's helpful. Yeah, I agree with that.
Podcast genre, gender breakdown. So for us, 67-33. I think that's when we look at our YouTube and our backend analytics and iTunes, that's pretty much what we see as well.
That's true.
Although our courses are fairly split, right? The people who buy our courses are fairly 50-50. The people who listen to the podcast or watch us on YouTube are definitely heavily leans male.
That is weird. Yeah, but because it lines up almost identical to the Nielsen stats.
Yeah,
is what we see in our Libsyn stats.
Yep, for about 70-30. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. So, if whatever category you're in, I'll leave this on the screen for a second. You can watch the recording later. Podcast genres, duplication grid. I don't know what the hell I'm looking at.
Wait, what?
Oh, this is where the overlap is.
What percentage of listeners to each genre also listen to other genres?
Okay, yeah.
So the overlap.
Business and comedy is 21%. That's like right there.
I see.
Business and education, 36%. Interesting.
Fiction.
So this tells me that if you and I went on some education podcasts, we might be able to scrape up some more business interested people.
Health and fitness. I mean, there's a reason why we've brought some of those folks on our podcast. That's 30%.
Yeah.
25 news, 26 sports. Okay, so that's good.
28% technology. Yeah.
Cool. It's interesting because I like what you just said is that you can use this data right here and be like, okay, cool. So how do I show up on some of these other podcasts, maybe a sports podcast, maybe you could show up as a guest or, run an ad even on their show.
Yeah. I don't know. Sports might be a hard crossover. I can see education being a good crossover, maybe news being a good crossover. Technology.
You have a show that kind of blends. You never know the niche of it. It could be the business of sports podcast, huh?
That's true.
Come on.
That's true. 9 podcast networks and over 150 of the largest podcast programs available in Nielsen's podcast buying power service.
Don't know what that is.
I don't know what they're talking about here. And that's pretty much the end of the document.
I mean, that was a lot of stuff. That looks cool too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Purple
waves. All right. I like purple. Next resource. We got some good stuff here. So Nielsen, definitely dig through there and just see what you come up with there.
Yeah. So iOS 15 rolled out. Here's the new podcast app. One of the things
Eddie Bravo. Not Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro is who I was thinking
of. Is that? Oh, nice.
I was thinking of Ben Shapiro. Yeah.
Good call. Thank you, Andrew, as well. And Tano, you nailed it again.
Yeah. I also like Sam Harris, but he's on the other side. He's on the left. Yeah.
Sam Harris is cool.
Yeah. I like both those guys. I listen to both right and left conversations a lot, actually, because
you're a unicorn, Matt.
Yeah. I don't know. But one of the things that I liked about the new Apple rollout is that there's more discoverability stuff. Like There's more if you like this, then you like this. It's more apparent.
Recommendation engines.
And one of the things we have noticed is we did see kind of an uptick in downloads on Apple Podcasts. So I'm wondering if maybe we're getting discovered a little bit more organically because of the iOS 15 updates. Other than, a very, very slight redesign, it doesn't really seem like there's much difference. They added a 1.25 playback speed.
Whoa.
So, big major moves there. Now iPad iOS 15 has some keyboard shortcuts.
Big deal.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting with the comments on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
That, like, people were kind of ripping them a new one.
Yeah.
Apple, which, I mean, rightly so. But it's interesting to see what other people are saying about it as well.
I'm going to be honest. I don't use the Apple Podcast app. So I'm just like going off of what this article says. I mostly listen on Overcast, and I listen to Rogan every once in a while on Spotify.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah. It's good to know the environment in which your show lives.
Yes.
So that's about that.
All right. So here's this case study that was pretty cool. I'll let you talk about this because you've read the whole article. I skimmed the article.
It's been a couple weeks now, but yeah, so this article here, let me take the control here really fast. So this is all about Apple Podcast subscriptions, and this was a thing that rolled out maybe 2 months ago now from Apple, and this is from Darknet Diaries, the host over there,
Jack Rhysider. It's actually a really, really good podcast.
What's his name?
That show. Jack Rhysider.
Rhysider. Okay, I was trying to find his last name, can't find it here, but yeah, so he basically did a whole experiment of just essentially saying, hey, what if I uploaded my episodes to this paid subscription in Apple and have them run it? And I think he's paying, it's 30% cuts or something like that. And the idea there is that, he chopped out all the ads, chopped out all the stuff that's like, essentially the free type content. And he put it behind their paywall in Apple. And you could see that he started to get subscribers. And after 45 days, I mean, he does have a big show. With no marketing, too. That was the thing he wanted to stress here, is that he didn't tell anybody about this.
Not even a call to action on the podcast.
Nothing.
He literally just uploaded. He took all of his episodes, cut out the ads.
Took a while, he said.
Uploaded them into the Apple back end. And then I guess he added some bonus episodes as well.
Yeah.
And he didn't tell anybody about it. It was just like there was a subscription available inside of Apple and people started buying it.
There you go, right here. The most incredible part of this is I did nothing to convince or even tell my audience that they're getting this bonus content, ad-free episodes through the subscription. So yeah, he said he'll plan to, but that was like, I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, I mean, how can we all angle our shows to be a little bit more premium for those types of folks, especially if you have ads right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's easy enough to make like an edit with the ads in and with the ads out. And then, if you want an ad-free version, go subscribe, and then every once in a while throw in some bonus episodes. That would be, it's kind of a pain in the butt to go retroactively do it, but it wouldn't be too hard for, going into the future.
Well, he said it was a pain in the butt, but I think he's laughing his way to the bank right now because he has recurring income. That's
true. Here's one of the downsides, though, is he gets into talking about how much Apple takes.
They take a lot.
Apple takes 30% of all the money I've earned through Apple Podcast subscriptions. So he's basically charging $20 a year to get this extra stuff. And they're taking 30% of that.
well, he pays Apple $20 a year.
So you pay a $20 a year fee to be able to do that, and then they also take 30% of all the money on top of that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of weak. Compared to Patreon, they take 5 to 12%. Substack takes 10%. Supercast takes 59 cents per subscriber, which figures to be about 12%. So Apple is more than double all of the rest of the ways to do it. But at the end of the day, if you can take your content and throw it into Apple subscriptions and people are just going to buy it and there's no extra real skin off your back.
I don't see this as a complaint personally. It's a lot, but but
you're not doing anything. They're literally doing that marketing for you.
It's the fee of using their platform.
When we sell products and an affiliate promotes it for us, we give away 50% commissions typically.
That's why I'm like, it's a complaint, I guess. But I'm like, you're basically getting free money for the work. I mean, there's a little bit extra work maybe, but I would happily give the 30% up, but it is kind of steep. Apple, you should drop that.
Yeah.
But definitely, I mean, because if you use Patreon, Substack does have an environment.
I wonder if it's exclusive.
Supercast, not sure.
I wonder if it's exclusive because Spotify is rolling out the same thing. And I think he talks about Spotify here, which Spotify says you get to keep 100% of it for the first year. And then after a year, they're only going to take 5% or something like that.
Right. Yeah, not sure if it's exclusive. Smaller complaints. Yeah.
So if you can put it in both places, then
why not?
Starting to look nice, you know?
Yeah, but check out this article. This is a great article. It's like super deep dive. I mean, he was very honest, and it's pretty short to read too.
Yeah.
So check her out.
Sweet. And then the last of the news bits is actually not anything huge. I just wanted to mention PodFest, which is
huge. Actually, it's not going to be a huge event though.
It's going to be a smaller event.
I
actually was a little confused by this, like the dates.
Yeah, well, they have a virtual, and then they have I guess a couple virtual sessions.
Yeah, because there's something that's October 28th and something that's November 2nd. So here's the details for PodFest. We'll probably be at the in-person one, not 100% sure yet, but we're trying to make it work. Actually, that's real. Oh, that's the virtual date. All right.
November 5th and 4th and 5th.
Yeah. So the in-person dates are November 4th and 5th. I just wanted to mention this on this episode because we love PodFest. Sure. We go to PodFest and we go to Podcast Movement. PodFest, the quality of the content. I mean, the quality of the people is great at both. Like it's kind of the same people that go to both, but I've always liked the content more at PodFest for some reason.
I mean, I feel like we're a little nuanced too, because yeah, we definitely love Chris and the team over there at PodFest. So go check it out, and if not in person, definitely catch their virtual sessions.
Yeah,
they got some good stuff.
So yeah, that was the last bit of news. So
Sweet.
PodFest is a pretty cool event. So let's see, what is Tano saying here? I find your argument really interesting because if you study traditional media, 30% is nothing. Now, if Apple starts to advertise and then not give you any cut of the ad dollars, YouTube, yep, they do that. Then it would be shitty. Yeah, I agree. I mean, 30% seems high in comparison to the competition that's out there, right? But Joe and I think we agree with you. 30% is not that big of a deal to add a passive income stream to your existing podcast. But if you're comparing, should I do it on Apple? Should I do it on Spotify? Should I do it on Patreon? Should I do it on Supercast or whatever the other thing was? Well, all those other options, you're actually going to make more, but
you might not be able to grow and get the subscribers because
they may not have the reach that iTunes has. Yeah.
Well, it's just not the same platform, period. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, the other ones aren't a podcast platform.
Some people just won't listen on Apple Podcasts, but they will listen on Spotify. Some people just won't listen on Spotify. So if it's a non-exclusive thing, I would say put it on Spotify and Apple. I don't care about the 30%. It's really no extra skid off my back. So I'm just saying, and that article was saying that if you look at the alternatives that are out there, the alternatives are all much cheaper. That was really the only big point there, but I see no downside to putting it everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last couple things here are just some cool resources that we found that
so yeah,
this one was super impactful.
Crack open that one because this guy here, y'all need to study. And this podcast or this episode this article is good, but what you want to do is find this right here, this link that goes to
this
YouTube.
Week we're going to do
so this video here, and it's broken down in lovely chapters, which makes it much easier to get through here.
Throw it in the chat real quick.
And so this guy here, he is basically making about 1.2 million from his podcast using sponsorships and brands to fund that. And he pitches them and he tells you exactly how to do it. He actually walks through his whole studio, how he thinks of his podcast, how he's taken it from literally him in his closet, uploading, audio, thinking no one was going to listen. You said the comment earlier. But now he's got this like full blown crazy studio, over $55,000, of stuff invested in here. He's got cameras on these like freaking dollies. I mean, it's wild. And it's everything we would dream to have. But at the same time, you can see how he's engineering it because he's literally pitching brands that he uses or that he loves, and he's selling himself. And he basically walks through how to do that here.
He's doing the exact same thing that we were talking about sort of at the top of the show, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about doing these long-term brand deals. And then this guy kind of popped up on our radar right as
popped on our radar by me Google searching like randomly it was like, I was like so happy to find this. I was like,
yeah. So like this guy popped onto our radar and we started watching it and he's breaking down exactly how to do these long-term brand deals, how to start a podcast, how to get brands to go deep with you, and how to get brands to pay you very, very large sums of money, even if your podcast isn't that big yet, but to go all in with you as like a brand evangelist. And he just breaks down the model in this video. So it's interesting.
Solid.
This is something we've been talking about for a long time. And this guy like literally gives you a framework for it. So check that out. Last couple things are going to be real quick. Everything you need to know about podcast sponsorships. This is actually the old model of sponsorships. They're talking a lot about CPM and doing, affiliate marketing and stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting. It's go up a little bit all the way to the top. Podcast sponsorship. So by running ads, yeah. And so this is one I think that's considering monetizing your show. Yeah. So as a podcaster, this is cool to read, and this website actually has like the flip too. So they have it from the sponsor side of things. I think that's helpful to read as well. So you have their perspective and you know how to sell using the benefits of sponsorships or even brand deals. You can kind of like interweave, whatever model you choose to do. But this is a solid article. And also at the very bottom, there's a link to the media kit page. It's like all the way at the bottom. And
I need to close the screen.
So all the way on the bottom, there's also a link to like how to build out your media kit. And, people ask for this. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just for sponsorships, but it's a way to present your show in a way. There it is. Yeah.
All right. I'll copy this. So here's the media, how to build out your media kit.
So the media kit's just helpful to have. I mean, as a media company, as a podcaster, you can just present yourself in a cool way. If someone asks, or you can put it on your website, helps you get more sponsorship deals, people reaching out to you. But it just, it's something most podcasters actually don't have. And it's kind of nice when you do have one, because it's probably going to get you a deal, a lot easier.
And then this last one is probably not going to be relevant to most people on this call, but it is how to name your podcast. And we wanted to share this article because it has come up inside of the Facebook group a couple of times, and people have asked questions who are just starting a podcast. How do I actually name my podcast? And this one kind of breaks down some ways to think about that. So real quick podcast little tip for if you're just getting started. Here's how you can think about naming your podcast.
For sure.
And that's the end of our newscast.
We don't need these things anymore. Look at that. 2 minutes over the hour. I think we kept it short and sweet. What do y'all think? I know not many folks live at this current state, but I thought we jammed through it pretty well. And not sure who's on YouTube, but we've had some questions there. If there's any questions at all before we wrap, shoot them over to us. But if not, that's cool too, because you know where to find us in the group. And we'll do more of these. Expert session, we are TBD on that person right now. We're chatting with a few folks. So we're planning for 2 weeks on that. But as always, keep it a lookout in the emails for PodHacker. And if you are not signed up to the news, PodHacker News, go do that. It's podhacker.com/news. And that's free. And that gets sent every Monday. So it's like a lot of this stuff. And you can get it basically just in time that way.
Sweet-o.
What else, Matt? Anything else?
Check
us out on hustleandflowchart.tv.
Yep. If you're not subscribed to that YouTube channel, we also have a PodHacker YouTube channel, which is where this is being streamed to. So subscribe to that. Lately, it's been mostly used for doing these live streams, but we do have future plans to add more podcasting content to that channel.
We will. We will.
But hustleandflowchart.tv is where most of the action's happening right now.
For sure. So if any other feedback, if you got it or whatever, you know how to reach us. Find us in the group, PodHacker group. Send us an email, info@evergreenprofits.com. Find us on Facebook, all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
What ton of savor here.
What do you say? Let's see.
Before you close it out here,
I like the longer version. If people want to re-listen and hate 2 hours, listen to it in 2 sittings and get over it.
Get over it. Tano said. All right, man. We'll toy with that maybe next month. We'll revisit. But appreciate you always for being on here, man. And everyone else. Dwayne, thanks for hanging out, man. And reason why is because your vaping is where the money at and the ideas are.
Yep.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, we're trying to do the same thing. We're just trying to do it in a shorter window of time. So I don't know. We'll experiment with different times.
We'll play around
on office hours. But
all right. Well, till next time, we'll see you over here somewhere.
Bye.